James, a lot of people are affiliating me with a scenario which says that the world's coming to an end. Actually, what I'm saying is that the risk in the credit markets has been put back in, and that there'll be some people wiped out, a whole cohort, but the other cohorts will thrive. Now, I understand that you think that there may not even be that much destruction to one cohort.
Well, it depends what you mean by destruction. So yes, there's a very emotional, sad thing that's going to happen, which is that a lot of people will lose their homes.
Right. And that's what I've been focused on,
yes,
just, you know.
But that might not have anything, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that might not have anything to do with the stock market. So, you still have, the high-end consumer doing well. I mean, we saw this in retail sales.
Yeah, I think Saks is a buy.
Well. Yeah. And but maybe some of the low end.
Okay, well, this is great that you brought this up, because I've had this debate with my dad. Before I went on the Today Show, before I went with Aaron Burnett and stopped trading, he said, look, you got to follow your heart sometimes. I know you're about Procter & Gamble. But, you've been telling me that there's all these people could lose their homes. And someone should talk about that. And I said, but Dad, it's really, I think in the end, it's a great opportunity to buy shearing plow. And he says, occasionally it's okay to have a heart. And it's like,
right.
Dad, you're kind of right. He said, well, look, if I had lost my home when you guys were like 14 and 11, it would have been a calamity beyond all belief. And you would like to think that someone in the government would have seen it, because I'm a hardworking guy. And I said, that's true. And so I kind of was leading with my heart there.
Well, but you brought up an interesting point. Where does Bernanke solve the problem? Does he solve it at the Fed funds rate, or does he solve it by, providing collateral on the, backing the collateral on the mortgage-backed securities?
If Fannie Mae had been allowed by this horrible guy, and I say horrible because I actually mean it, James Lockhart, who's really just been put in to kind of hobble Fannie Mae, if Fannie Mae had been allowed to do it, that would have been fine. If they would set up a resolution trust committee for homeowners, that would be fine. If they set up a resettlement administration, which is what John Steinbeck set up in Grapes of Wrath, that would be fine. But to do absolutely nothing reveals a level of heartlessness. And maybe it shouldn't be put on Bernanke, because Bernanke has one way to solve it with his lower interest rates, but that has a lot more risk to it for other things. But if the administration would recognize it, which they haven't one bit, because they're very focused on Iraq,
right.
Then I think we would really, if we took, let's say, 1/10 of the money, no, let's say a quarter of the money that we're spending in Iraq, and we put it toward the resettlement administration, my problem goes away.
Well, that's a great point.
But then the people in the Sunni neighborhoods wouldn't be able to destroy the new hospitals we built.
But let's not forget also, Bernanke is helicopter Ben, which means that not that he could cut rates, but he'll fight deflation in other ways. So Milton Friedman's liquidity trap, which Bernanke follows, is let's carpet bomb the dollars where it's needed, and it might be to back the subprime guys, as opposed to lowering the rates, which doesn't really give the banks confidence when you lower rates.
Okay, now the two companies that are deposit institutions that are on thin ice, Washington Mutual with that high yield tells me they're on thin ice, and Countrywide obviously on thin ice. Are they just going to be casualties?
I don't know. I mean,
it's tough, right?
It's tough. Like you mentioned in an earlier video, this is ground zero. Sometimes you want to stay away from ground zero.
That's what I'm thinking.
So, and I'll just give you a little anecdote. This is ground zero right over there. I lived right next to it, and unfortunately, I was scared of ground zero, and I sold my loft there at the bottom. So I'm not necessarily the best one to judge on those particular stocks, but based on my background.
I think you're right. I mean, I just want to emphasize one point. There's a $35 billion home building industry, and I am going to say point blank that none of them will survive. None of them. Yeah, and it won't matter one whit.
That could be, because they're all
lower the price of homes.
I mean, they're all like trying to sell their inventory now.
Right now, I mean, some of them have, whoever has the longest term credit out there, 2011, 2012, the revolvers, they might last, but they might not, because all these guys have these impairment charges. Some of them have better balance sheets than others. Some of the balance sheets are just awful. But if the whole industry got wiped out, I'm telling you, it would not mean anything.
Really?
Not a thing.
What about all the people, involved in building the homes? I mean, there's a lot of...
very small. Very small. Look, we've handled the whole wipeout of the auto industry, and all that's happened is Michigan has a lot of it. Right? It's a great, strong economy. And people don't think we are, but you can take out a whole sector and it won't matter.
Well, that's a great point.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.